problem with the feed, and we're looking into that. Anyway, Mr. Brady, sorry to have interrupted you. Sorry, Mr. Melendez, for having interrupted you. Could you go with your next question? Or maybe you should go with the one before if it wasn't answered.
Thank you. So, Mr. Melendez, before the break, I think you were saying that the reliability analysis was created before the July 3rd rate petition. Is that right? So when you responded to the ROI that the Energy Bureau asked that we went over earlier, the reliability analysis existed.
The full reliability analysis existed.
And you did not provide it.
You're gonna have to actually show me what you're making reference to be able to say.
Well, I did show you earlier. You had a moment to read it. It was on the screen.
Are you referring to ROI Prep 001?
Yes, actually, it's still on the screen. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not cited in there as provided. It's part of all the information that we provide. We do provide reliability and analysis as part of those reports. There's quite a bit of information that is shared when I can make references to all those documents. I did.
Is there an author or a creator of the reliability analysis?
The reliability analysis is part of the activities that are performed within my organization. That falls on the engineering team. They are the ones that collectively brings that report up. It's part of the responsibilities that reside within my organization. Working with the operations organization is a team effort. So the author of the actual documentation that goes into these filings.
So it's shared across the engineering team. Is that what you're saying?
It is owned by the director of that organization, and he works with the organization to ensure that it gets completed from a report perspective. You asked about the report, and that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, there's actually a reliability model file, right?
Yeah, there's a modeling tool that's different, right? The report versus the modeling. Yeah, there are some tools that we utilize at Luma that are all part of that team.
Okay, and I'm just wondering who is sort of the owner of that model, if you know.
The owner of the model is that organization. Organizationally, it rolls up to me. The director of that team is the one that basically owns ensuring that it is utilized. If that's what you're asking.
So do you actually, go into the model and update values?
I do not personally. No, I do not.
Is there a person who does?
Our teammates work on ensuring that the data that goes into this modeling comes from field verifications. And they are the ones that actually enter the data that needs to be analyzed. As we discussed earlier, the operations team has data that feeds into this model. There are various groups that actually feeds into it. So in order to the model to run, you need to definitely put the data somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. I'm just asking, can you give us a name of someone who actually works in this model?
Humberto Campana is the director of that organization. He's a professional engineer, licensed professional engineer that actually has the responsibility on this area. He's the one that assists me on this matters.
Okay, thank you. And is he also the one who updates it over time with new data?
When you say he, I'm a little concerned, right? Just to understand, because you're making it sound like it's just one person, one subject that does it all, and that's not the case. There is a concentrated effort to ensure this modeling and these tools that I use are owned by the organization to produce the results that we're producing. I'm trying to understand what he personally, if he's doing it, he works with it. And they are team members that he has designated for some of the modeling.
Okay, let's move on. You've said Luma's reliability analysis involved a structured engineering judgment approach. Is that right?
And it's correct.
You also use that phrase, structured engineering judgment, throughout your SIR rebuttal testimony, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And as we discussed yesterday, you've reviewed Mr. Shearman's SIR rebuttal.
Yes.
And he also uses that phrase a number of times, fair?
It's fair to say, yes.
Can you explain to us what that phrase actually means, structured engineering judgment?
For which there are some rules that you're utilizing, so guiding principles that allows you to be able to go through it, right? There are guiding principles that come as a result of IEEE standards that could actually be utilized, that gives you the I'll call it the playbook of some of the things that are used under that. At the same time, that we ensure that the information that is there has been validated and verified, particularly when it comes to from the source of the systems. It's very structured in regards to that. And then there's a guidelines that the team is following. That's what you mean.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so you said a few things there. One was a playbook. What is that?
I use the word like IEEE, the IEEE standards in regards to reliability, the indexes determination actually outlines the things that you should do and also determines what is excluded, what is not included. I use the word playbook because it really is defining the IEEE standard itself, how you actually determine reliability and you do these calculations. That is actually what the team utilizes as the source, and then it's fed with the information from the different regions and the different areas in regards to the actual events data.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just not hearing you, and so I'm worried the reporter might not be either. Did you say AEEE?
IEEE.
Thank you.
Institute of Electronics. I'm sorry. Electrical engineering is a standard in utilities that governs how utilities run, and indexes is.
Okay, so IEEE, that's not a Luma document, right?
No, it's not a Luma document. That's what I'm saying. It's a guiding principle standards. It's globally used. I don't know what would be an equivalent. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned this IEEE standard, which, as you said, is a general standard. That's one part of it. And then what was the other part of it, or was there another part? I'm sorry.
No, well, after that, I use the word playbook.
Mhm.
Right? That provides you the guiding principles on how reliability gets determined. And then we actually use information from the actual events that are happening in the system, detailed information from the different sources, such as the outage management system from the operations and distribution team to understand when the events happen, when the events end, records associated with what was the cause, what was the initial cause. That all that data gets collected to be able to make the calculation.
Okay, and the outage information that you were just talking about, that's the historical piece, right, of the judgment?
That's not the historical piece of the judgment. That is the data that goes into the modeling, and then you would utilize the historical piece. When I say structured and the historical piece, let me describe it to you. I gave an example yesterday about 2,500 customers on my left hand, 25 customer in my right hand. When you're actually making a system configuration, the tool doesn't know that, right? The tool doesn't know whether or not you're impacting more customers or less as we're measuring and finding improvements. So that's the engineering judgment that we're utilizing, is to ensure we understand what regions are being impacted, because we understand the assets configuration, physical versus the actual design configuration. So the team utilizes that knowledge of the system to be able to use that structure view into what reliability, what projects need reliability. And that's what I'm making references, that they structure. We use their intellectual capacity and expertise, and of course they're professional engineers, to be able to help us with that decision making.
Okay, so basically it's an engineer using their judgment at the most basic level. That's what that means.
No, that's not what I mean. It's part of the input of the process. The tool actually has the calculation. The engineer does not make a judgment on
What is the tool?
the reliability tool that makes the calculation, the actual computational assessment, is using the data that comes from the system using the IEEE standards. The output of it gets divided up for the system, electrical system, to determine what the reliability impacts across the entire system. The team utilizes then their expertise to be able to interpret and analyze the data, to be able to use their professional judgment to decide, okay, which projects do we need to do where? That is what I'm trying to describe to you, which is not untypical, right? It's non-typical to be able to do it. It's just industry.
I didn't say it was. I'm just asking you the judgment piece. You just said they use their judgment, right? That's what I'm asking you. The structured engineering judgment basically means there's a historical piece and then there's a judgment piece, right? Yep. Okay. Do you agree it's not ideal to rely on structured engineering judgment?
I do not agree with that.
Okay, could we bring up LUMA Exhibit 75? Well, this particular exhibit is Mr. Shearman's rebuttal. Yeah, so the general purpose is to interrogate the reliability model by which LUMA prioritized the capital projects that it's proposing in this rate case. I am asking questions on cross based on the testimony that's been provided, as I'm entitled to do, about how the model operates and what its value is. Well, I'm trying to get there. This is about the data, and that's why I'm pulling up Mr. Shearman's testimony right now, or rather the clerk is. Thank you. Give me a moment. On this particular line, okay, give me a minute. Maybe 45 minutes or less. Because I'm not. The time estimate I gave you before was based on a streamlined presentation, and that is not what I'm getting with this witness, unfortunately. Okay, so we have up LUMA Exhibit 75.
Who will handle that? Just answer the question straight. You don't have to respond, sir. Just relax and answer the questions. Don't worry about whether he's catching you in something. Your counsel, your able counsel will take care of that. Mr. Brady, please.
Okay, could the clerk please go to page 15?
By the way, sir, do you also have questions for, I have to remember that we have other witnesses. Will you also have questions for Mr. Shearman at some point?
At some point, my colleague can speak to that.
Mr. Napney, I want to think about managing the time between now and Monday afternoon. I'm not asking you to commit yourself, but I realize that there's Mr. Shearman here that will have to be examined somehow. What do you have to tell us?
I do expect to have substantial cross for Mr. Shearman in the executability.
Executability. Okay. Anything else for Mr. Shearman? Do you think, Mr. Napney or Mr. Brady? Just trying to get a feel for things. Go ahead, sir.
I mean, there may be a few questions, during the executability panel, but, that's where he's primarily
Okay.
testifying to.
By the way, I find that topic fascinating, and I'll be involved in that as well. So we look forward to that. Okay, Mr. Brady, sorry to interrupt you, sir.
No problem. So I'm looking specifically at the testimony beginning on line 313. And Mr. Shearman states the they here refers to Luma, but please feel free to read around there and confirm that if you don't want to take my word for it. They know that this engineering judgment is an interim, italicized, substitute for data-based modeling, not validation of it. And while it's not ideal, you agree with that statement, right?
That's not what you asked me.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can re-ask the
Mr.
question.
Melendez, listen very carefully. He asked you a very simple question.
So do I agree with the statement that he's mentioned in entirety? I agree with that statement.
All right, next question, please.
Okay, so I had asked you, it is not ideal to rely on structured engineering judgment, correct? So what's your answer to that?
You asked me if I agree or disagree. And I
Yep.
will say it again. What he's describing here, and he's describing is not, and I answered, it's not a typical. I understand where you're coming from, but what I'm trying to go back to where we're at in regards to what the information that Luma has and the information we have, it's not. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I mean,
Mr. Melendez, there will be a transcript and it will show what I asked and what
Okay,
you said.
Mr. Brady,
Moving
next
on.
question.
I'm moving on. You also agree that structured engineering judgment is not a good substitute for data-based modeling?
the statement is written. I concur in regards to an engineering perspective and the capabilities that exist. Yeah,
So you do agree with that statement?
that's written. Yeah.
I know it's written. I'm asking you if you agree with it. It's Mr. Shearman's testimony. You don't have to agree.
Let him answer the question. Do you agree with it or disagree with it, or you partly agree with it, or do you want to elaborate?
I agree with the statement because it says an interim substitute for data.
Next
So
question.
I agree with what it
Thank
says in time frame it is referring to.
Next question, please. By the way, I have a question. So, Mr. Brady, I think what you were doing is referring to two things as one being a substitute for the other. Structured engineering judgment, and then what was the other one? Data modeling?
Give me a moment. I was skipping ahead since you said to move on.
Oh, database modeling. Yeah. And were you asking us for him to compare the two and say that one was better than the other, or were you asking him to? What were you asking him about that? About whether one was a substitute for the other?
Yes, Mr. Hempling, I'm really just going off of what Mr. Shearman
No,
testified here, and
what you were asking.
those are his words.
Okay. I mean, don't
So
you have to?
you can
have
ask
both?
Mr. Shearman.
Don't you have to have both?
You do have to have both. That's what I'm trying. That's
Okay,
what I was trying
that's
to
all.
answer the question originally, right? Because they're two different texts
Okay.
that he's reading to me, and I'm trying to make sure I'm answering the two.
All right.
They could be different answers based on what I'm reading.
Okay, we'll just see how the transcript goes and what the briefs say. Mr. Brady.
Mr. Hebling,
Sir?
John Sherman,
Um,
for Luma.
Sir?
Mr.
I'm
Brady,
not
just-
crossing
I'd
Mr.
ask
Sherman.
Mr. Sherman if you'd like.
One second, please. Mr. Sherman?
Yes, Mr.
Don't
Brady,
testify. Ask me a question. What is your question?
may I respond to Mr. Brady, who just said you may ask Mr. Sherman if you want?
You will get your time. I need to keep, I appreciate that. If this were just a conversation in a bar, we would probably go that way, but I have to sort of follow certain protocols, and Mr. Brady is in charge right now, so he gets to decide who sings and who doesn't. Mr. Brady.
Mr. Melendez, would you agree with the statement that Luma lacks much of the data and key information necessary to identify the probable benefits of each project it proposes?
And when the words is lacking, I'll say there's a lack of detailed data on intermodeling to be able to put it in the system. I'd agree with that.
You agree with that statement?
I agree with what I said.
Well, that's different from what I asked. So should I re-ask the question then? Do you remember it?
You can re-ask again if you want to re-ask again.
Well, do you remember it? You can answer it if you remember it.
You said if it lacks data.
I'll just repeat it. Would you agree with the statement that Luma lacks much of the data and key information necessary to identify the probable benefits of each project it proposes?
You ask me if I agree with that. I would not say with all projects. I don't agree with the statement, that broad statement, they're trying to categorize it for all projects. But it's specific to one answer. I'm just trying to,
That's fine. You answered the question.
Okay, could we go, we're in the same exhibit. Can we go to page 12 and look at the top of the page?
Page 12, top.
Okay, and do you see there in that first full paragraph where it says, however, LUMA lacks much of the data and key information necessary to identify the probable benefits of each project? Do you see that?
Mhm.
So you disagree with that, right?
so it's not that I disagree. It is written here in the context of what I'm
No,
answering.
I'm not
the
asking
question.
you if it's written here. I'm asking you if you agree with it. Yes or no?
Do I agree that we lack data? Yes.
I'm asking you, reading this sentence that's on the screen in front of you, do you agree with the entirety of that sentence, not just the lacks data part, the whole thing?
It's a yes or a no. Your lawyer will work with you afterwards if she thinks there's a need to elaborate. We will be here all night.
I understand. I mean, just answered the question already. Yeah.
Sir, what was the answer to the question?
You're a witness, as a lawyer, asking questions to respond. If the question is not well formulated, you have a
I'm
lawyer.
ask-
That's the way it goes, please.
Let's hear the question again.
There's a question pending. I can re-ask it. Okay. Do you agree with the statement written in the first full sentence, first full paragraph on this page? However, LUMA lacks much of the data and key information necessary to identify the probable benefits of each project.
Yes.
Thank you. Would you also agree that the quality of the data and systems is insufficient to support detailed assessments of likely reliability benefits?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you agree that LUMA has to accept a degree of inaccuracy and uncertainty in the reliability data and the reliability benefits calculated for proposed projects?
Yes.
Okay, switching to the distribution pole and conductor repair program, I'd like to talk with you about that for a moment. The total 3-year ratepayer funded cost of that program is approximately $650 million in the so-called optimal budget, right?
Can we just look at it? So it's a lot easier. We can go through this.
Again, this is the large spreadsheet, Mr. Hempling. It'll take some time, so I'm happy to do it, but
I'm assuming that is correct, and then we just move forward and you say optimal, and I'll say yes.
yeah, I mean, the number is relevant context for these questions. So, yeah, but we can just assume it's $650 million NFC. It would be LUMA Exhibit 5.15 to Mr. Melendez's direct testimony. 650, so the record is clear, and that's NFC ratepayer funds. Would you agree, as I believe your colleague said earlier, that there is no formal record of the number or location of secondary poles in the T&D system?
That is correct.
And in fact, part of this particular program brief is to assess the distribution system further to figure out what poles to repair or replace, right?
Incorporated, yes.
And to assess the number of circuits that you're going to work on.
Yes.
So given those challenges, are there difficulties coming up with this $650 million estimate of ratepayer funds for the program?
Objection. It's a vague question, calls for a narrative.
So the answer is no. It was not hard to come up with a number. That's based on the needs of the system.
Now, in your sir rebuttal testimony as to this program, you also discussed the allocation of funds between federal and non-federal, right?
Yeah.
And you say that the reason that LUMA didn't allocate more of the total amount to federal funds is because LUMA took a measured view of how much federally funded distribution work could be accomplished, correct?
That is correct.
And as a result, LUMA proposed lower levels of federal funding. Excuse me, strike that. As a result, LUMA proposed lower levels of federal spending on this program early on, right?
Yes, we were doing the distribution allocation of it because there is a finite amount dedicated for distribution.
Right. So relatively less federal funding, relatively more ratepayer funding.
At the beginning, yes.
So if LUMA were able to achieve a faster ramp up of its federal spending, the scales would shift, so there'd be less ratepayer funding, right?
It's more than the ramp up of federal spending. It has to do also with the obligation process to be able to get access to the funds because we don't have them all. It's likely, yes.
Or if LUMA were to defer some of the ratepayer funded spending, then again, to give it time to ramp up the federal, again, there would be less of a need for ratepayer funded spending.
Yes, mathematically, yes.
But that's not what you're proposing here.
What I'm proposing here, yes, that's not what I'm proposing there. What you're seeing there, it is a ramp up.
Okay, switching to distribution street lighting. Do you recall discussing that this morning?
Yes, I did.
And there was a question to which Mr. Burgermeister said that the ratepayer cost for the street lighting program, NFC, was around $3 million. Do you recall that?
I recall that, yes.
Okay, so could we go to LUMA Exhibit 2.03? And this will be the same tab as earlier that we had up, 5.4.1.
Tab 5.4.1, please.
And then on that tab, we're looking at what LUMA has numbered item 2 on row 10 of the Excel. And if you could scroll over to the left, please. Okay. And do you see that says distribution street lighting PBUT 5?
Yes,
Okay, so that's the street lighting program that we've been talking about today, right?
that's the street lighting program, yes.
Okay, and now looking at column H for fiscal year 2026,
Mhm.
the non-federal funded CapEx is $4.456 million for that year, right?
Mhm.
Okay, could we scroll over to the right into fiscal 27, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Melendez, just for clarity of the record, I think you said which we all tend to do.
Yeah,
You-
yeah, no, understood. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Fiscal year, I'm guilty of it myself. So fiscal year 27, same thing, column N, non-federal funded CapEx. The number there is $15.324 million, right?
Yes,
And again, non-federal funded or NFC means ratepayer funded, right?
that is correct.
Okay, could we scroll over to fiscal year 28? To the right, please. Thank you. And in fiscal year 28, the total NFC is almost $21 million, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so a lot more than $3 million, right?
That is correct.
And summing those up, LUMA is requesting over $40 million worth of NFC or ratepayer funds for the street lighting program during this rate case period, right?
Yes,
Now, do you recall earlier when you were getting questions from the Energy Bureau's consultants about the basis for the estimation of NFCs in this program? How you estimated these NFCs?
Yep.
And the discussion was essentially that the NFCs were pole failures, right?
And when that conversation was happening, that happens to be the case.
Right. Okay. So, and I believe, I forget if it was you or Mr. Burgomeister, it may have been both of you, said essentially that you looked at the rate at which polls had failed, right? These kinds of polls, and then you based your budget on that, right? And you can jump in if
I do recall a conversation and I remember that being about the distribution poles, not about the streetlights.
Okay, so then what is the basis for this $40 million?
There was an original question around that where there was an ask earlier today about the ramp up in the street lighting. The current amount is about as the streetlight program is the federal funded side of it is active right now. I mentioned that operationally we're dealing with emergent failures. So that's the component that's be right there right now and why a smaller amount. As the streetlight program progresses, the program has to move from a capital-based program with under Pedro's over into the operational world, and we now have to start managing that system. We do not have a formal operational streetlight program as it stands right now. We're relying on the federal funded program. So that's why you start to see a ramp up over time as we have to start dealing with that system from an operational standpoint.
Okay, so let me see if I can understand this. You're saying, because in these numbers we just walked through, there's nothing for OPEX, right?
Correct.
And so you're saying this, what is called NFC CapEx, will actually be spent by your department?
Generally, yes.
Okay, so it really should have gone under the OPEX column.
No. Again, whether a capital or OPEX is an accounting treatment. It's not who conducts the work.
Okay, and that, I guess we'll call it OPEX spend, regardless of how it's accounted for here. That OPEX spend is to replace emergent poles. I think that's what you said.
Streetlight poles, but the way it stands right now is we're managing a lot of the problems in the system right now through the capital program as they can go through. That has to be transferred over. We will begin doing operational team will start doing inspections of the system, and we'll get a program going for that. And then what will come out of that is corrective maintenance, which is capitalizable.
So how did you actually come up with this $40 million budget estimate for the street lighting program, ratepayer funded?
I mean, thank you for the question. So there are failures that are occurring or imminent failures, and we're using the historical data that we have had to be able to actually go and complete the work. I gave you example when the same illustration we're making about a pole that happened in my hometown that had to be replaced, and we put a steel pole on it. It was a street light. We actually utilized capital funds to be able to do that. There is a significant amount of these conditions out there, or either imminent failures or broken, that are causing safety, which is the criticality that we just talked through. And that's what we're utilizing these funds for.
Okay, so that was what I thought. You're looking at historical failure rates, right? Like an average.
Or the inspections that we have talked about of all the things that we know are existing out there that has issues to determine, hey, this is safety, right? Human safety issues, and we're budgeting for that to proactively go and replace them.
Right, historical information, things you've done. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you're applying that forward to the rate period.
You got it, sir.
Okay, so if it's based on historical failure rates, why does it ramp up dramatically from fiscal year 26 to 28?
Very good question. Because we're not being able to keep up with the failure rate, and also the volume of work that we have pending is significant. There's a lot of unsafe conditions out there. It is a very serious situation when it comes to streetlights. So we're balancing that plus the obligated funds.
So you're saying in fiscal year 26, your position is you're not actually repairing emergent streetlights?
We're replacing them. When we say repairing
Or replacing them, yeah, sure.
You may have reference to 2026.
Fiscal year 2026, yeah.
Could you go to the left for a second? Can I And I see the 2026 and we
Would the clerk
reference to
scroll over to, thank you.
see fiscal year 2026, non-federal has $4.5 million. I want to understand your questions. We are.
Well, yeah, so I'm trying to understand your answer. You said basically the ramp up is because you have a lot of unsafe conditions out there, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if you're spending, what, 5 times as much in fiscal year 28, then presumably that means you're not fixing those unsafe issues in fiscal year 26, right?
Because that is correct. For 26, there is a ramp up. That's what you're asking. That's what we're asking for funds.
And you're also not fixing those issues in fiscal year 27 because you haven't ramped up yet, right?
Because we also have obligated dollars as well in regards to the funds that are obligated and allocated. So there's a balance between the two. I don't want to look at it just one-sided.
And when you say obligated funds, you mean federal?
Federal funds, that's correct.
So, and federal, as you've said many times throughout this hearing, take time.
That is correct.
So why is it then that the non-federal ratepayer funds are increasing over time? Shouldn't you be getting more federal funds over time?
Oh, and is a general question or just a specific street light? Just want to be able to
Well,
answer.
no, it's specific to streetlights. So I'm trying to understand. You're saying you've been saying for, just to clarify, you've been saying that federal funds take a while, and yet we have a ramp up here through fiscal year 28, a 5 times factor. I don't understand why more of the fiscal year 28 isn't federal because they've had time for the money to come in, right?
I would like to answer your question, and there are 224 projects got deactivated, and that includes a lot of the streetlights who have been deprioritized from, not by Luma, I'll say. So we actually have to complete the work because we have a prayer order. Projects get deprioritized. We need to make sure we have sufficient funds to be able to meet the prep order in regards to replacing all the streetlights. So there's a balance to your earlier question about having to abide to mandates. So it's a balance. We're trying to find a way to ensure we abide to the mandate while we continue with the obligation process. But right now, we don't have more obligations on the streetlights, so we are actually then moving to execute the work under NFC and continue to that process and continue pushing to ensure those projects get then in the future, get back into the FEMA queue.
Okay, I think I would understand your answer if this ramp up went the opposite direction. Well, I'm
Hold on 1 second.
still trying to understand.
Well, I don't know that he can give it. Well, all right. Well, what's your follow-up question? See, I just want to mention one thing, Mr. Brady. Again, what you've just asked is very interesting, and that seems like the point of it all. And again, I want to encourage you to think about designing your cross so that you start with that, because often you could get there a lot sooner with fewer questions. Now,
thank you for that
I'm
advice.
still talking. Okay, believe me, you're good at this. So we'll both get our words in. You're trying to understand it, but are you arguing with him, or is there really something you don't comprehend? It just sounds like you're skeptical, which is what goes with the territory. Do you want more explanation, or you just don't buy it?
I genuinely want more explanation, Mr.
Right.
Hempling.
Go ahead.
I thank you for your advice, and I just want to note that in terms of preparation, much of what I'm speaking with him right now is reactive to what he's saying. So
Okay.
I can't have pre-prepared for knowing what
All
he's
right,
going to
just
say.
go ahead and ask the question. Thank you.
Okay, so you said you are complying with a regulatory mandate to replace streetlights, right? That was
We have a mandate. We're working to comply with it. That is correct.
right. And you said you need non-federal or ratepayer funds now to help you comply with that mandate.
And as submitted on the optimal, that's what I say, yes.
Right. And so now is like, as we sit here today, you want to get started fixing streetlights with non-federal funds to comply with this mandate.
We have been, just want to make sure.
Okay, sure.
We have been.
Right.
In 2026, you should see the numbers smaller, and we're ramping up. You're understanding it correctly, yes.
No, thank you. And what you said there at the end is what I'm still not getting, because if federal funds take time to come in, fiscal year 28 is 2 years away. Why is it that your non-federal fund goes up 5 times from now, today, when you say you want to get started, to 2 years from now when the federal funds should be arriving or arrived already.
I'd
No
love-
objection to the last part. It's an argument. And
Just,
it's not
just,
based.
just to answer the question so we can get through this. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Do you
definitely.
understand the question?
It's availability of the federal fund grant itself and how much funds can be allocated based on the distribution that has been pre-established. That's pretty much it. It's availability of funds. The overall, being able to do all the orders and do all the work will require $21 billion in the next several years. So we're prioritizing the dollars into reliability work, which is what we talked to. So federal funds will have to cover because of what FEMA is being. It's a balance between the two on how to push it. But right now, the street lights are not actively being pursued on the FEMA because the projects have been deactivated. No by Luma, but we don't have access to federal funds right now. I'm just speaking about today.
Okay, so today the projects have been deactivated.
They deactivate today. They are deactivated as we speak. That is
Yeah,
correct. There are
got it.
224 projects, about $6 billion that are not, we can't pursue them. I'm trying to communicate that to you so you understand the reality of it.
Okay, but you don't know that those projects will still be deactivated, say, in fiscal year 27.
Like I said, I don't know what the future holds, so I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know. That's the answer. Yeah, I agree with you that I don't know.
They certainly could be.
Certainly could be. Yes. Yes.
And you don't agree with the decision to remove those projects, right?
I do not agree.
Okay, so you're actively trying to get them reinstated,
Yes.
right? Okay, so it's not the case that they just got taken out and are gone forever, right?
Right.
From your perspective.
From my perspective, I actually issue a letter on that. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Hampton, warning.
It's no
Keep it up.
problem. He's fairness. He's not a lawyer, as you've adeptly pointed out. Next question, please. Luma will make an argument in its brief, and you will make an argument in your brief about the fairness. Go ahead, please.
I believe you mentioned earlier, Luma is considering a new service fee for this program.
I did not mention that. That was discussed with Mr. Kevin Burgmaster, but I have knowledge of it.
Okay, you're aware of that.
Yes.
And is part of the goal of that fee to reduce the ratepayer burden?
I'll say from my perspective, and we'll say because I'm the capital program is to ensure that fairness in the process. I'm an engineer, so I'll tell you that.
With display, so see if you can proceed. I had be subject to check.
Yeah, I actually got a message from a colleague that the audio is also out on the live stream.
All right. I hope somebody's doing something about that. I'm just the hearing examiner, but thank you for sharing that.
So should I continue or?
That's a very good question. Let me see what the prince. We're going to adjourn until 3:40 today. Thank you, everybody, for a productive afternoon. Everybody relax.
Probando. Probando.
Everybody ready? Mr. Brady, continue, please.
For the record, Corey Brady, Weil, Gotcho, and Manges, on behalf of National, speaking for the bondholder group. Do we have up Luma Exhibit 5.11 to the Melendez testimony? Could we bring that up?
5.11, please. Take a minute to look at it, gentlemen. Tell us when you're ready.
Thank you. Just leave it in there.
And the part I'll be focused on is on page 2, but Mr. Melendez, if you'd like to read page 1 first, feel free.
So how about we go to the question to make it easier? If it requires me to go back and read it, I'll appreciate if you can give me the opportunity. So let's go through page 2 really quick.
Sure. So do you recall before the break, we were discussing the reason for considering a service fee?
Yeah, understood. Yes. I mean, yeah, go ahead. I made a question. We just go from reference. Go ahead.
Okay. So if we could go to the last row of that table under GAP.
Mhm.
And do you see where it says labor charges incurred by Luma employees for new project connections, projects funded by customer payments are covered through non-federal capital, ultimately affecting ratepayers. To address this, Luma will comply with existing regulations, and then it cites 2 regulations, and assess the feasibility of implementing a service fee for each project phase. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So does that refresh your recollection about why a service fee?
This is consistent with what we have discussed. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's basically to shift the cost off the whole rate base and onto the new customers, more or less, right?
I'll say yes. It's more or less.
Okay. Luma has not yet implemented that service fee, right?
I that I know of. No, we have not. That I know of.
Do you know when that service fee will be implemented?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. That's all on new business.
That's all what on new business?
On new business, yes. And
What's
then
next?
give me a moment.
Thank you.
Do you recall much earlier today when Mr. Schiffman was asking you about the block grant? And I believe he said something to the effect that there was quite a bit of flexibility in terms of what you apply for in FEMA funding under that block grant.
I'll say yes, just so we can continue on. But yeah, I understand we want discussion of that. Yes.
Okay. And you said you disagreed with his use of flexibility, and then you gave an example, right?
Yeah, you have to apply for it. Have to go through a process. Yes.
Okay. And effectively, you said that you have to show that project is associated with the event being the disaster, right? And so in your example, it would be that you have to show Hurricane Maria impacted a particular structure, right?
The example that I used, yes, at that time, yes.
Okay. As we discussed yesterday, Hurricane Maria affected the entire island of Puerto Rico, right?
Yes.
And therefore the entire T&D system.
Affected, yes.
How many instances are there where FEMA has actually rejected a proposed project solely on the basis that Hurricane Maria did not affect that asset?
I don't have a count to be able to say that. I don't have a count to be able to answer your question about how many.
Do you know if there are 10 such projects?
I cannot tell you how many because I'll be speculating right now.
Do you know, sitting here today, whether there is a single project that has been rejected by FEMA on that basis?
In the basis of non-conforming to it, as far as how it's written, we have seen obligations. Want to make it very.
Hold on, that wasn't his question.
Okay,
The question
I wasn't talking about writing.
Have you seen a single example of what?
Have you seen a single example where FEMA has rejected a proposed federally funded project solely on the basis that Hurricane Maria did not affect the asset in question?
I can't, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
You have not seen.
I have not seen it, so no, I
Answer
don't.
that. You answered the question. Next question, please.
Do you recall this morning, Commissioner Ramos asked you about the NFC allocation for distribution pole replacements? He asked you some questions about that?
Yes.
And he asked you if there was a particular portion that LUMA will pursue to get obligated with federal funds. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And maybe my notes were incomplete, but I never actually recorded an answer to whether there's some specific amount that you will pursue. Is there?
Objections, it's an argument, a comment by counsel. The record can be,
Just what's the last 5 words of that question, roughly speaking?
I'm essentially just re-asking Commissioner Ramos's question because I don't have an answer.
Well, let's just hear the question again, please. The last half, the part without any purported or anything that seems like an argument.
Yeah, so out of the total non-federal capital for the distribution pole replacement program, what proportion is LUMA pursuing to have obligated by federal funds?
When you're asking proportion, you're looking for a mathematical number. I do not know that number.
It could be general, half, 3/4.
I will have to look at the number and the asset to be able to answer this question with more precision, to be honest with you. Can you rephrase the question so I could give you what you're looking for?
Well, Mr. Brady, is the actual answer in the record?
Not that I know of. I mean, this was Commissioner Ramos's question. I'm just trying to get an answer for the record.
If you don't know the answer,
I just don't know the answer to the question because it's too broad in context, right? So it's very hard for me to answer a proportion of what.
It's okay.
The proportion of the total NFC, right? So if that's the numerator, or that's the denominator, and then the numerator would be how much are you seeking federal funds for, right?
So,
which then results in a fraction.
So it's an incomplete assessment, and I'll tell you just to help you understand where I'm coming from, right? You have to also look at the federal that we're looking for that particular project. Don't look at it just NFC. There's NFC. There's also federal funds.
No, I understand.
Don't interrupt him.
Thank you.
Continue.
You're looking for proportionality of the parts that are not. I cannot give you an exact amount. We'll pursue everything that we believe is qualifying for it. But I could share right now that of the total, right? If you show me the two numbers, the federal for that particular program, and you show me the proportion that is being NFC, I could probably give you a better answer. But I don't have those two numbers in front of me to be able to do that. That's why I cannot.
Okay. That's the answer. Next question.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Hempling. I think we may be talking past each other, and I think there might be a misunderstanding about the question. I'm not asking you the proportion of non-federally funded to federally funded. Is that what you were talking about just now?
Don't answer that. Just ask the question one more time, please, and let's take a shot at it. Go.
Okay.
Real
So,
slow.
out of the total NFC or ratepayer funded portion of the distribution pole replacements program, how much of that is LUMA seeking federal funds for? Don't worry about the federally funded portion, which I think is where you were going in your last question. Just looking at the NFC.
This is
You're spending a certain amount of NFC for distribution pole replacement.
But he's asking.
1 second. Let me try because I need to understand it myself. There's a certain amount of money you're asking for ratepayers to pay in NFC for a distribution pole replacement, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Are you asking for any portion of that to be funded by FEMA?
At this time, no.
Okay.
Cannot answer that way.
Okay. That's the answer to the question. Did you now get an answer to the question you're asking, sir?
Okay, yeah, as of this time. And so my follow-up question is, do you intend to pursue federal funds for any portion of that NFC total?
In all cases, the answer will be we're always going to intend to look for those funds so long it applies. Yes.
Okay. And do you know the portion that you intend to seek federal funding for?
Yes or no? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay, that's the answer. Now we can move on. Thank you. Thank you.
May I? Excuse me. Yes. Yeah, the intent of my question was to find out if there is a pole being funded entirely with federal funds.
So when a project like that has been spent and it's part of the obligation that you included, you cannot ask for funds again. but we attempt to ensure that it's included when it's a failure, because we can associate it, if it is associated already, right? If we did the assessment, it has not been obligated, and we submitted it and it's included on that, we replace it. Yes, the answer is yes. Hey, this we did it with federal funds, so let's reconcile it because it was included on the FEMA dollars. So we do reconcile that accounting of it. But if it was not included, and we could, right, we use the word could because we're in the process of building that process, we can incorporate it. So we seek that reimbursement and say this pole has been replaced. We be careful because when a pole has been replaced with federal dollars, it doesn't always apply to be able to be reimbursable. That's why, and to understand your question, there's two parts of it, and so that's what I'm trying to add. I can't attest to how much of it until we understand it case by case and the stages of the federal funding. It's very difficult to be able to give you that level of clarity. If we can, we will.
Yeah, I think you've answered the question to the best of your ability, have you?
Yes, I did.
On distribution. Do you
How long-
recall
what's the line? What line?
the last line of questioning? I was
Right.
trying to assure you that it's
I'm
almost
just
over.
asking you what the line is. The subject.
It's a brief follow-up on the criticality point that you
Go ahead,
raised this
please.
morning. So with that preface, do you recall discussing with Mr. Hempling the concept of criticality?
Yeah, yes, when the evaluation.
And you said in the course of that conversation that, well, let me back up. Mr. Hempling asked for Luma to provide more details on its criticality assessment, right?
He did mention that. Yes, he did.
Okay. And then in response to that, at one point, you said that Luma is working on that already.
In collecting the information, which is what we discussed, yes.
Okay, so now after Mr. Hempling raised that, you are working on putting together those materials.
What do you mean now? I don't understand. We
Okay,
did-
so here's where the confusion is. He might have interpreted your, I'm not sure whether he interpreted your answer to mean that you hadn't been working on it until I raised it, and or whether when you said you're working on it, it was something you've been working on before I raised the point.
Oh,
So that's what he wants to clear
So
up.
no, that's a great question. So let me back up because I think was a conversation we're having.
Don't back up too much. Go.
No, back up in the context is we do have this criticality. It is available. We submitted information about the framework on how we evaluate project is part of the questions that are out there. He wasn't making references about the criticality for street lights, and that's what we're talking about. He wanted to hear more about it. And I said, yes, that's sort of things that we're working. If there's additional information that is needed and it's going to be requested. That's what I was having a dialogue with. So we believe that this is something that it could come as an order, and we will prepare to gather the information. When I said working on, that's what I meant.
Question, please.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brady, for your efforts today, and you, Mr. Netmoney. It's always, as I've said many times, good to have the bondholders here with their alertness, their quality, and their intensity. Additional cross, Mr. Vasquez Melendez, please.
Good afternoon, Attorney Pedro Vasquez Melendez on behalf of the OIPC. Just a follow-up question regarding Exhibit 2.05. When we were talking at line 55.
Do you need to have? Would you
Yeah,
like to have
please.
it up?
Yes.
Okay,
2.05.
2.05, please. Okay, and where on that document would you like to go, please?
Line 155
All right, give the witness a moment.
in the non-federal.
Tell us when
Yep.
you're ready.
Okay, so we were talking about the distribution system improvement for DER.
Yep.
And you were talking about improvement like transformers. Does at any point does that improvement includes feeders?
The improvement could include some level of changes to the feeders. Just to help you, we there's an ROI that has a list of the items in it that would include.
Yes. What I'm especially asking this is because are you familiar with the Act 114 and regarding specifically the who is to bear the cost of the improvement to the feeder when there's when in an interconnection of the DER?
Are you
Are
familiar
you-
with it?
Yeah, the answer is yes. I'm
So-
familiar. That's what you're asking. I'm familiar with it. Yes.
So it's supposed to be bear by the proponent, right? of the project.
The proponent of the project, which is correct when it's a project. In this, we're not talking about a project. We're talking about interconnection at DER, which is automatic according to the law.
Right, but if you my question goes to what you're asking here to be funded by the ratepayers includes items that should be borne by the proponents are not by the ratepayers, correct?
Are you proposing that certain costs that by statute are not supposed to be borne by the ratepayers should be borne by the ratepayers? Are you proposing that?
That's not what I'm proposing.
Do you know?
I don't. Can you replace the question so I could give you?
I asked you specifically about the feeders, which is what the law especially designate that it will be borne by the proponents.
So when there's a new connection, a new customer,
Yep.
which is what we were been discussing, that is correct. I'm aware of that, and that will go through the process. That's what I was explaining earlier about the new connections for new customers of being just the engineering, because the rest will be covered by the customer as they make modifications. In the case of this DER, rooftop solar, the customers make modifications to their facilities that interconnects to the system that are impacted, and by law, that is automatic. So they connect to the system, and then we do the evaluation. We're identifying the issues. Is that as a result of that, who covers? I think your question is who covers those costs. There's not a mechanism today.
I'm asking you because you said between the costs that are included in those 11.5 million for fiscal year 2023 includes feeders costs, right?
Like I said, I answered that includes impacted assets. Just to make it easier for you, includes feeder costs. It is very broad. When you're saying that, I'm struggling, right? Because it's a broad statement, right? When you say feeder, right? The secondary service into a feeder is part of the feeder. The transformer that I made reference to is part of the feeder. In that context, when you add the components, that is correct.
So at any time, you have analyzed what should be borne by the proponent and what should be borne by the ratepayers when you came up with this amount of 11.5 millions?
No.
No.
It is the number that you see here, and I'm going to share it with you, is already identified issues of the over 150,000 customers have been connected. As we continue doing studies, we have identified a pattern. We're seeing that they keep coming. We're adding about 40,000 of these a year. So we actually calculate at a rate that we're going. We're going to continue having to do these repairs unless there is another mechanism to recover the cost.
So that amount includes money that should be borne by the proponents? Improvements?
When you say proponent, I'm struggling with that, if you don't mind, because
the DER proponent.
Their DER proponent already has interconnected the system. Should it include it? Should it include it? I'm really not in a position because that's more of a regulatory question.
That's what I'm asking specifically about the improvements. We know the law, what the law says. I'm not asking to give your opinion about the law. We know that the interconnection is automatically. We're asking specifically if this amount requested include improvement to the feeder, which the law says that should be all improvement to the system should be paid by the proponent.
I'm struggling with the question.
Okay, let me try the question with you, and I don't want you to answer if you think it's a legal question or if you think that you don't know the answer. So I'm going to try to ask you the question, okay? And then this is going to be the last attempt at it, okay? With respect to the 11.5 million.
Right.
Do you know whether, when you calculated that number, by the way, were you responsible for calculating the number?
My department was responsible for calculating that number. That is correct.
Do you know whether in calculating that number, somebody gave attention to the possibility that that total might include costs that by statute should be borne not by all ratepayers, but by the actual beneficiary who's going to be installing the solar? Do you know if anybody took that question into account?
That took that calculation into account to understand based on the law. They did.
Okay, and is it your understanding then that in the 11.5 million, none of that is coming, none of that by, do you know whether the 11.5, in the 11.5, that none of that that ratepayers are not bearing any portion of that by statute should be borne by the, what he calls the proponent. Do you know?
Because you're asking me a legal matter questions, do not know to
Okay.
answer your question, right?
All right.
What I do know is that the upgrades are being identified as necessary.
Okay.
And our interpretation, working with the team and the legal team, there are upgrades that need to be done as a result of these installations.
I'm going to suggest, and I'm not going to order this, I'm going to suggest that Luma ask Mr. Figueroa, the Director of Regulatory Affairs, to have a conversation with Mr. Vasquez Melendez to see if there can be clarity brought on this particular issue, which happens to be important. And that's a request, not an order. Okay, Ms. Mercado? I guess out loud? Yes, thank you. All right, is that it, Mr. Vasquez Melendez?
On that subject, yes. The other question was regarding the polls that we were talking. We have that have any type of I don't know, it is to sell challenge to ownership or have different ownership. Who else could have ownership over a pole rather than the PREPA?
I'll give you an example. The telco companies have had poles on the street. I've seen it many times, right? And then an attachment is made on the electric pole. I'll say that because I know of one because of my hometown.
Okay.
But that would be one case in which telcos are installed poles for the telecom.
Are customer owners of poles also?
I cannot attest to that. In my understanding, they are customer-owned premises equipment, so I'm assuming that they have poles that are owned, a part of the premises that they have. Particularly customers are industrial, that all those assets are there. So I would say yes, in the context of the broad terms of potentially owning poles.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nieves?
Thank you, Mr. Hempling. This is Luis Nieves, counsel for PREPA's Employee Retirement System. Mr. Melendez, thank you for your answers today. Earlier today, you explained that in the context of street lighting projects, Luma uses a system of 6 categories to classify projects according to their criticality. Is that correct?
I will clarify. I mentioned 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I said that in reference to that, it could be that amount of numbers, but I just want to clarify. Yes, that's what you're making reference to. Yes, I was explaining in numerical.
Okay, thank you. And within that example, let's call it 0 being the classification for the most critical projects, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
You also mentioned that if a project is in a 0 or 1 category, Luma may use ratepayer money to cover the costs due to the urgency of tending to a highly critical issue, correct?
That's what I say, yes.
You also mentioned that to allocate projects within these categories, Luma uses different criteria, like, for example, safety, structural damages, and conditions of the asset. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does Luma use standardized definitions for these criteria when classifying projects?
Yes. And I'll further add, right? I mentioned, and I went through 0 through 5 just because it's one of the methodologies. Each one of the criteria may have less than that, but to answer your question, yes, these are defined.
Okay, thank you. Are these criteria standardized within Luma's internal practices, or is it according to industry standards, or both?
I would say it accounts for the industry standards and the definition of safety and what has been done. That is correct.
Okay.
But hold on, that's a little unclear. It's Luma's own definitions taking into account industry standards.
That is correct.
Next question, please.
I said it in reverse.
Since when or for how long has Luma been using this method to classify the criticality of projects?
That's a great question. So as you may recall, Luma submitted a lot of what is called initial scope of work and ISOs for the FEMA projects in 2023. So around that time frame, prior to that time, so a lot of these definitions or terminologies and categorizations were defined just around that time frame of early on.
Okay. And is this method used for all T&D projects, or is it just for street lighting projects?
So for applicability, I'll use the word applicability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in which use the same concepts, but the definitions might be slightly different because it's not the same to prioritize a street pole versus a T&D asset. But in the concepts that I'm referring to, yes, it is in all the assets.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nieves. Ms. Mercado, read the record.
Mr. Melendez, earlier this afternoon, you were asked about the distribution rebuild program, PBUT 39. You remember?
Yes.
And you were asked about upgrades, upgrades of components to make them more modern. You remember that question?
Yes.
Could you explain why Luma is proposing to upgrade certain components to modernize them?
First, we have when I say old, a lot of assets, and modernizing needs to bring it to current standards by definition, and at the same build that hardening that allows us to withstand service and a lifespan from there. That's kind of in concept what we're trying to accomplish. There is a lot of that because there's a lot of infrastructure that is from the 60s that we won't be able to actually acquire. We'll have to buy modernized equipment for it. So that's what we're trying to do.
You identify the benefits, if any, that Luma has identified in attention to that, those proposed programs in terms of customer benefits?
That is correct. That has been part of the evaluation criteria and the benefits from a reliability and longevity of the project from a benefit analysis.
You were also asked about projects or initiatives regarding operational flexibility. You remember that?
I remember those questions being asked.
Yeah. Could you explain what is operational flexibility?
I will use a similar example of the work that I did in 2000 to 2003 when I started my career, which is basically you can add a recloser to connect two loads. So whenever you have an outage at the substation, you can actually move the load from one circuit to another. That's flexibility that reduces the time where the customer will be impacted without a service, while repairs could be done in other segments of the line. That is one of the benefits of things that we do not have today. The same for plant work is another benefit. We can plant work and not interrupt the customer with the PI, which is what I just mentioned at the distribution level. Those are the benefits that the customer will see. There will now be less interruption, whether it's planned or unplanned, as a result of doing projects like the one I just described.
So you mentioned.
Excuse me. What do you said that you don't have that flexibility today? As long as I remember, when you design a switching unit or a transformer, usually you got loops. So you can do exactly what you already mentioned. So you have flexibility. So maybe why you're saying that you want to add some flexibility in other areas.
That is correct. Like the question, you are correct. That flexibility does exist. I just used an example about more at the downstream of the distribution circuit. So not everything happened at the substation. What you just mentioned, it is correct and accurate that you have that flexibility at the substation level to move feeders. I'm referring to even going further into the distribution system, which is adds even more value because you're able to isolate and interrupt later. So thank you for the question.
You were also asked questions about whether certain projects could be deferred, correct?
I was asked that question, yes.
Okay. Could you explain the effect of deferring projects from Luma's NFC proposed spend in this rate case?
As I am part of my testimony, I talked about the fact that using the constrained budget versus the optimal budget and the consequence of it, you continue having a degradation of the system to 4 to 5%. Well, that will continue happening. When you defer projects, that is the actual effect. Customers will not see the benefit if you continue deferring projects.
I would ask for exhibit, I think it's bondholder 606 to be shown to the witness, please.
Bondholder 606, please.
Mr. Hempling, while waiting for that to come up, may I raise something briefly?
Well, I'm listening.
My understanding was that there would be no friendly cross during this hearing, and I did not hear counsel or the pensions to ask any adversarial questions of Mr. Melendez just now. They sounded like redirect.
You're right. I missed that. That's a good point. What do you want me to do about it?
I would move
in the future. I understand that part. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, respectfully, I would move to strike and also ask that you remind the parties at the housekeeping session that there's no friendly cross.
All right. Well, with respect to the motion to strike, I'll think about that overnight. Do you suffer harm from the questions? because I could have asked the questions myself and you'd have no objection, and that's the little awkwardness here. But to tell me, do you want to think overnight as to whether you were prejudiced?
I'll think about that, Mr. Hempling. I just wanted to make sure that this was clear in the record
Right.
because my understanding was that was not permitted.
You're right, and it was my fault for not paying closer attention to that. So let's see what you think tomorrow, because if there's no prejudice to you, I'd rather leave it because I found the answers useful and wished I'd asked those questions myself. Let's listen to you tomorrow, sir.
Thank you. And I would also ask permission for one recross question in relation to that, because I believe it actually muddied up the record.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to get through the redirect. We're going to get through the questioning on the next topic that Mr. Schiffman has, and I'm going to look at the clock because I've got a boatload to get done before tomorrow. And so I want to get home on time to get to work on it.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Will the recross be short or long?
Very short, Mr. Hempling.
Okay, well, we'll see. Ms. Mercado.
Yes.
You were shown this document earlier today. You remember this is a response to a request for information posed to Luma by the Energy Bureau, correct?
Yes.
And you answered questions regarding the studies that this request for information required from Luma.
Yes.
And those were studies to assess the transmission and distribution systems.
Yes.
Yeah. Are these studies the same as a reliability methodology that Luma used regard to prioritize its improvement proposed investments?
No.
Explain why not.
Because when we're talking about the entire assessment of the system, right? We, from a technical basis, it's not a defined term here, but in a technical basis is that have an understanding of the conditions of the entire system. When you're talking about specifically about reliability, that was not necessarily what the request referred to.
Also, in reference to the reliability analysis, you answered that it requires constant analysis of reliability. Could you explain what you meant by that?
As the system continue being upgraded, and as the system continue having events, we continue analyzing the system, right? We continue updating our models with information to understand what the information says. It's an ongoing effort. We do have some reporting that we do to capture point in time, but the constant review and modeling is a day-to-day part of the operations of our business.
You were also asked questions about limitations in data. You remember those?
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any proposed investments in the rate case to allow Luma to address those limitations in data?
We do have several projects in the queue, and I would like to mention a few, if that's okay. The EMS project that is going to be talked about in a little bit is one of them that happens to have interconnectivity model. What does that mean? That our assets will be displayed. There is a GIS effort to ensure that our mapping system has of the data that will provide more information about the locality of the assets. They can in being able to better utilize the specific asset information in the system. Also, our asset management system is part of the systems that we are investing in that will allow us to improve the level of documentation, the level of accuracy, the level of operations in a more systematic way. That would also allow us to build to the next level, which is to be able to do predictive modeling using more advanced tools in the process. So that's the evolution that we're pursuing.
On the topic of new business connection, you remember you were asked about whether this program is related to improving the customer's experience?
That was asked, yes.
Yeah.
I remember.
Is that the only benefit of this new business connection program?
No.
Explain what are other benefits.
The program allows us to be able to interconnect your customers. That's why we're here, right? And we have to do analysis, we have to do engineering. Those are other parts of this program. The question when asked was specifically of that being part of it. I'll leave it at that. Because in general, it's just not just that element where the experience is just one element of it, not the overall driver. We have an obligation to connect. We have an obligation to provide technical services as a utility, and that's what those funds are used for.
Thank you. I do have some questions to Mr. Sherman, given the exchange earlier. Can I ask them now? Mr. Melendez was asked about Sherman's testimony. He's here and he offered to answer questions, so I would like to pose those questions to him. Regarding his testimony, yeah, and Mr. Brady said you can ask those questions to Mr. Sherman, so yeah.
Yeah, and to be clear, I said that to Mr. Hempling. Yes.
Well, I think.
Just 1 second.
He asked to be heard. Yes, he asked to be heard. Yeah. Well,
may I?
I think portions of his testimony were read out of without the full context of how they were stated in the testimony, and he could clarify the context in which they were said.
The fact that the context might have been insufficient will go to the usefulness of the conversation that occurred. Let's go to your next. The answer is no. If you can find some other way to handle it, but you're of all the people in the room, you're the one that I worry about when I try to show care in procedural, not worry about. You're the one that's most likely to call me out if I'm not very careful about procedural correctness. So let's go to your next.
I don't have any more questions.
Plenty of chances to share your knowledge with us. I've been enjoying the. Say this out of your mouth. You've been enjoying so far. Have you been learning? Have you been learning anything? Okay, well, that's damning with faint praise. Well, thank you. Is that it? Is that it, Ms. Mercado? Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. Give me a commitment to amount of time right now.
2 minutes top.
Go. And there's not going to be any redirect after this, and don't foul it up, Mr. Brady, okay?
Mr. Melendez, do you recall a few moments ago when Mr. Nieves asked you about the criticality scoring? And he asked you if Luma.
Yes.
Thank you. And do you recall him asking you if Luma requested ratepayer funds on only projects scored 0 and 1?
He asked the question that was included. Yes, I answered that question. Yes.
Okay. And Luma also included projects that were scored 2 in the criticality analysis, right? As you testified earlier this morning.
Yes, there are projects in there, and as part of the overall process, his question was about.
When it requests ratepayer funds, includes projects that are scored 0, 1, and 2 on the criticality analysis scale.
Sometimes.
I was going to say sometimes, and the question he was asking was related to street lights, and that will be the case.
Thank you.
Well done, Mr. Brady. Thank you. All right. Looking around the room, looking at the body language, and here's where we are. We are going to have Mr. Schiffman's questions on the subject of Energy Control Center, and I expect that to last somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. And I will take up roughly 7 to 10 minutes with the few housekeeping details, and we'll be out of here before 5:15. And that's where we stand for today. And thank you. Mr. Schiffman, welcome back.
Primarily some conceptual questions about the control center and the emergency management system, and then maybe a couple of questions about the specific budget. Can you describe just in general the plans for consolidating the existing control centers and the distribution rooms?
Yes. You want me to explain it?
Yes.
We currently, at the time of commencement, we had 6 different control centers, 4 for the distribution, 2 for transmission. We currently have 5, 3 for distribution, 2 for transmission. 1 has already been consolidated. So what we plan to do is, with the control center project, is to move down to 2 facilities, the primary control center will have all of the functionality of the distribution control, transmission control, and all of our dispatch functions as well, which is dispatching our crews out to outages, which is also placed around the island as well right now. And that will give us a single location where all of that functionality can work integrated all together, which is an ideal situation. The second part of that is what we call a secondary control center, which is a backup of the functionality. It's not a complete new building or anything like that. It is simply making sure that we have the systems in place to operate if we need to, that's independent of the main building, if there is something that occurs to it that requires us to continue to control the system, we can transfer over to the secondary. So we will be down to those two locations.
And then is that transition expected to be completed in fiscal year 26?
No, it's not.
So the budget, as I understand it, on the non-federal side has got, over $60 million in fiscal year 26 under control center and buildings category. And then that drops off significantly after fiscal year 26. Can you help me understand that what costs are driving?
Yeah, well, again,
Drop off. Sure.
the control center project and the EMS obligated. So the non-federal capital that we will be spending is associated to things like modifying buildings so we can move people around to make room and space for the new building. And it's not in the order of those amounts. That's why I like to say recollection. It's more in the $2 to $3 million. So I need to understand where you're seeing that number.
All right, let's get it up. But what's the reason for the drop off while we're getting it up? What are we getting up? 205?
Yeah, because it's just one-time required costs. So once we make those modifications, we don't have to do any more work.
Exhibit 205. Will there be scale economies in terms of operating costs by moving to the two control centers versus what was formerly 6 and now 5?
Yes, and I'll be clear. The secondary is a location where you can move to in the event of a failure at the first location. It's not manned or anything along that matter. So you are physically operating solely out of the one facility if there's no issues. And yes, there absolutely is. There is benefits achieved by consolidating all of the functionality into that one facility.
And those benefits are reflected in your operating budget?
Yes, they are.
So you're saying the funding source as I am understanding it, the funding source for the new control center, and I guess the backup one is federally funded, but then is there cost associated with repurposing the existing control center buildings for some other reason? Buildings. And so line 19, 20, 21, for example, has critical energy management system upgrades.
Not yet.
So line 19, 20, 21. This is in the non-federal capital tab.
And sorry, the three lines we have highlighted there are totaling just over $3 million.
Yeah, there are other ones that are under this control center and buildings, but these ones are grouped together, which is why I identified those 3 lines. Are those related to the control center or are they related to something else?
So these, I would say line 20 and 2021 are related to the control center.
And for line 20, for example, it's $2 million in fiscal year 26 and
yes,
0 in fiscal year 27 and 28, right?
Correct. And these are more numbers that I'm familiar with for specifically the control center. I think what's happening is there's other buildings completely unrelated to the control center. So it's more of our facilities budget is probably making up the rest of the dollars that you're seeing.
Okay, could you move to say starting at line 218?
Okay, we're there.
So from line 218, say to 227, there's a number of expenditures, some of which are included just in fiscal year 26, some of which continue in other years. So you're saying those are not related to the control center, that's other buildings?
I'm just scanning through here quickly. Yeah, I don't see any here that are related to the control center.
So for example, on line 223, the $5 million per year for EMS furniture projects, that's related to furniture across all of the facilities. Is that how I should understand that?
Yeah, that's FMS, that's facility maintenance, that's all facilities.
Sí, pero he's answering.
Then I want to talk about the EMS system. Could you describe the current status of the EMS system?
Energy management system. Can you be a little more specific? Let me answer one piece to see this helps, and then if you need more, just let me know. So we have an energy management system replacement that is ongoing and is coming offline. We have all the site acceptance testing taking place. We're integrating with IT, which is to my left. If you have questions specifically to our CIO, you can answer more. The project is moving very well. We also is a federally funded project. We are completing what is called end-to-end testing for point from the field, from the SCADA and the RTUs, ensuring that the different protocols of languages that are communicating back are operating and working through it. We have a few items in there working through, but has gone very well. As I mentioned, the assets are on site. We are doing the loading. There's a site acceptance test. We're moving into the next phase, which is to start defining the parallel operations of it, to start mirroring our systems and moving forward with it as part of our transition into the new EMS.
So when is the new EMS supposed, expected to be complete in terms of the full functionality that you're seeking?
I'll cautiously answer. Go ahead.
My name is Crystal Allen. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Luma Energy, and my team has been helping support Pedro's organization and Kevin's organization in getting the EMS system and our SCADA system up to a modern functioning utility standards. Thank you very much. So right now, our existing energy management solution is very legacy, very old, right? And we are lacking real-time visibility of what's going on in the grid. We have been undergoing this EMS project to go from a legacy serial ecosystem into a fully functional digital modern-day 21st century energy management platform. We are scheduled right now to go live in the month of December. I won't say specifically which dates, but then both of these systems will run in parallel while we test full functionality and then eventually sunset the legacy ecosystem.
And are there expenditures in the current budget for completing that process, both federal and non-federal, or is it all federal?
So it's all federal.
All federal.
This project we're referring to is all federal.
Let's see.
And the EMS system is integrated with your outage management system as well, so you'll have a fully integrated outage management system in this December timeframe as well?
That part, no.
So Yes, we will have integrations between these platforms, but what I will say is the OMS platform is still pending an upgrade. So we are still running off of a legacy OMS ecosystem as well, which is our outage management system.
So when does that pending upgrade expected to be completed?
So both SCADA and EMS are foundational to our new technology stack. And then we will layer in additional functionalities like advanced distribution management solutions, and then also additional OMS functionalities. But we have to sunset the existing OMS platform and migrate to the new functionality.
I'll help answer this question as well. We have some structural data that we need to make sure we have to ensure that the advanced data management system is adopted into the utility. We expect that phase of the project after 2026, sunsetting into 2027 to become an effect. So we are deploying this in phases. You use the word full implementation. So I want to answer it at full, that we are doing it in phases. That's where sunsetting. The EMS is being installed now. The team will transition to utilize that system so we can sunset the older infrastructure. We're moving into the OMS. We're moving into other applications to ensure we can do contingency analysis, particularly in transmission, and et cetera. So that's kind of a rollout in phases. As I mentioned, it's 2027 is what we have. The last conversation, we're going to start seeing that ADMS coming more into fruition for the team.
So is the current OMS system, it has deficiencies with respect to like managing outage events or having visibility, say during an emergency response, or what's the current status?
See,
Evan, go ahead.
There's challenges with the system, and we have had experiences when we're in very large events, such as most recently Hurricane Erin as it passed by, where we had a very large outage account that we have trouble with that system being able to actually take the outages that are being called in to us and group them together properly to give us an event on a feeder. This comes back to what Pedro was already talking about. There's some foundational things that we need to be fixing first. And this isn't actually really a problem with OMS itself. Yes, it's an older system. It's got the functionality. Back behind that is a connectivity model and different types of models that have problems. They're not necessarily fully accurate. So those are the works that he is talking about that we have to do between the EMS and really getting the ADMS, which includes the OMS, functional. We have that work to do to get those models behind the scene more functional, more accurate, and that will help solve those problems that we experience.
So once those problems are solved, you'll be able to integrate ADMS and DERMS into your system more seamlessly?
Yeah, you talk about DERMS, right? So then the answer is yes. Yes, because the connectivity model, which is basically the representation, the electrical system represented in the system is not accurate. Once that's done, you are correct. We'll be able to then do the next phase of evolution for DERMS and any other infrastructure.
Thank you. I just want to make sure the transcript is clear with the acronyms. So give us spelled out what ADMS is and also the DERM, DERM.
Absolutely.
Slowly, please.
Advanced Distribution Management System. DERMS, Distributed Energy Resources Management Systems.
And that is expected in the 2027 timeframe. Is that what I understood, Mr. Miller?
The integration of the 4 topics we just talked about, which you talked about connectivity model, ADMS, OMS, and the capabilities for DERMS will be in the 2027 onward.
Right.
Between now and then, we're working on the foundational data and the foundational modeling to ensure that what we put in is representative.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Is there any cross-examination on this subject? All right, I'm hearing no cross-examination. Okay, so let's see where we are. One moment, please. Thank you, Mr. Schiffman. All right, well, first I want to thank Mr. Melendez, oh, I'm sorry. No, there's no cross, so there's no redirect. That takes care of that. Did you have a comment, Ms. Mercado?
I think that if I ask Mr. Burgermeister 2 questions about the control center for the record to be clear where the costs of the operations department are coming from.
Let's see
Could-
where that is
could,
and just answer the question that you hear. It's informational, as I understand it, not
Yeah,
advocacy. Is that correct?
Yes, and
Right.
in 205, exhibit 205.
205,
Yeah.
please. Listen carefully so we have any cross opportunity taken today.
Yeah, it's just for clarity, Mr. Burgermeister. What are the costs of the control center and buildings program, PBUT 22, that the Bureau should consider when determining your NFC proposed cost for that program? Do you see that, or is it PBUT 22, control center and buildings?
Yeah, we'll need to
That-
roll back up to those top three
don't-
lines that we originally looked at.
Would them be lines, if you want to read them, I don't want to.
And what we specifically said was lines 20 and 21.
Okay, 20 and 21 of exhibit 205.
Correct.
Okay. Could you identify in your testimony where that same cost, if we show you exhibit 6, Luma exhibit 6, the summary of those costs for further clarity?
I don't need this.
No?
We can find it in the testimony.
Okay.
Thank you for that reference, Ms. Mercado. Anything
Thank
else,
you.
ma'am?
No, that will.
All right, thank you. Any cross on what you just heard? No cross. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Burgermeister or Mr. Melendez for a long day today. Once again, Ms. Allen, a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and we thank you for the work that you do. For all panelists, you're welcome to leave now. We're going to do a few minutes of maybe 10 minutes of housekeeping, so you're welcome to leave, and no one will take offense. We'll see you back tomorrow morning, but you probably want to know what we're going to cover tomorrow, so thank you. So we are sticking with our agenda with 2 exceptions. Remember that tomorrow, first thing, 9 o'clock, we will have those who are dealing with renewable integration and its connection to the transmission system, which, if I remember, is on the agenda at part 1. Well, it's somewhere floating around on the agenda. I know I put it in there. So there's that. And Ms. Mercado and I shortly will talk about where to put the contract questions with respect to VM, but I do want to do that tomorrow at some point. What would you like? Why don't you tell us now what you'd like, and I'll think about it. Ms. Mercado?
I think the witness will be ready tomorrow, so it could be throughout the day.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do it immediately after the session that deals with the 9 o'clock session that deals with renewable integration? Do it right away, since they're both somewhat out of context. Is that okay with everybody, Ms. Mercado? All right.
Yes.
That's what we will do. And we will certainly do enabling tomorrow. The rest I have to check, and I'll send an email later tonight. I have to check with my other colleagues who have allocated time among the days. So certainly by 9 o'clock tonight, I'll send a note around to all council that says what our expectations are for Friday and for Monday. Okay, I don't have them right at the moment. Okay, thank you for that. All right, now I want to do a couple of housekeeping things. Everybody's attention. Panelists, you're welcome to leave. Thank you. Have everybody's attention? Okay. I had an email request from Council for Sun that Mr. Faruqi, for health reasons, be permitted to be participating in the panel remotely. Do you want time to think about that, or do you want to let me know now that you're okay with that or not okay with that? Do you want to think about it overnight? I guess anybody would have a concern. Does anybody have a concern with Mr. Faruqi's being part of the panel, not examined separately, but remotely? He's out in California. Any concerns with that?
We, on behalf of the bondholders, William Natpany from Cadwallader, we may have some cross, but we have no objection to the request.
All right. Well, somebody could take a note. Is the Council for Sun here today? I'm sorry, sir. Introduce yourself. I'm not good on names. Sorry, the name again, sir? Mr. Nieves. And so you can pass that on for good wishes for his health, and but he will participate in the panel when the panel shows up around the 15th of December.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I've not decided what we're going to do with Mr. Saka yet, but it's on my list. I'm granting, I guess I have to put it in order, I'm granting PREPA's motion for an extension for its pension testimony. So be careful, and everybody listen very carefully. The special pension testimony that I ordered in my order of October 27th will now be due on the 19th. I had given 2 weeks for rebuttal, and I will give 2 weeks again for rebuttal to December 3rd. Is everybody clear? That still gives us a week before the time. It's a little bit of a squeeze for all of us, including our people, but that is how we will handle that. Okay, we're basically out of time for any more extensions because there's nothing left to squeeze out of this schedule. Everybody okay with that? And I'll put that in order so you can have it on paper. Everybody's attention? Next topic. All right, PREPA has a separate motion concerning whether it would have, I guess, get Core 3 a person whose name I can't recall, but is in the motion to appear on the well, let's see, Ms. Valle, would be appear on the let me just get the sentence in my head for a minute, on the federal funds panel. What microphone? That she would participate in the T&D panel.
Yes, so
Yeah, I know you suggested that, but there's sort of two stages to this. One is she going to show up at all, and the other is whether she would show up on the T&D panel or whether she would show up on the federal funds panel. And I don't have a decision on this today. And I want to suggest to Luma, who wants to file a motion response, that if you can wait till Saturday noon, I'll have an answer. And I don't know what the answer is, but if the answer is she's not going to appear, you don't have to write a motion. If my answer is she's going to appear, you can move for reconsideration. That way you don't have to write a motion ahead of time, which might not be necessary. And that's what I will give you the time to do that. Is that okay, Ms. Mercado? Because I don't want to rush this, and I want to confer, because here's the situation. It's actually a question for the commissioners.
Yes.
We can ask anybody we want to show up here if they can provide information, as long as we make sure that there's a fair procedure. Now let's understand the problem, okay, so that everybody can think about it, because I have to talk to the commissioners about it, and I want to let you know what's on my mind. The first is that the only reason for her to show up here would be to give us information that we don't have. And the problem with that is that the time for that was testimony pre-filed a long time ago, and a whole schedule was set up where people would have a chance to get rebuttal. And there's no way we're going to have somebody show up here, new information, without full opportunity for there to be rebuttal. Okay, now one could say, well, if she shows up and does new information, you can cross-examine. Well, the problem with that is it's one thing to prepare cross-examination when there's pre-filed testimony that's been written and you can prepare it on. To do cross-examination on the fly, my wife was a prosecutor. She was great at it, but she was great because she's great. Okay, it's really hard to do, especially when you're managing all the other stuff that's going on. So that's the awkwardness here. It might have been a great idea 3 months ago. It's still a great idea. It's just not clear that we can implement it. And those are the questions that I wanted people to consider before we got all excited about it. But I want to take a day or two to think about it, to see if there's any way to make it happen. I want to see from other people who know the situation better than I do, whether there would be information new that would be useful, and whether this is the best way to do it. But those are the problems, and I hope you understand that I see the problems. And that's all I want to say about it right now, Ms. Mercado. I can't imagine what you would want to add to that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
if I may be heard on PREPA's motion, I do ask, because it's a late filed request formally on the record, and I won't add the procedural arguments. I agree that there will be issues on due process that you broadly outlined, but I do want to get some data points on the record on 2 items.
All right, well, Ms. Mercado, what I'm saying is if you want to write a motion instead of waiting for Saturday, you can do that, but I don't want to have argument about it right now.
Well, I'm prepared to argue briefly, but I will also file the motion. If I'm not heard right now, I will file the motion, because I think it's important for clarity on the record on this
All right,
topic
I know
before a
you do.
decision is made.
I don't want to have argument right now. It's too late in the day.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think our first main concern is relevance, because the motion as filed today does not establish relevant material that this representative could provide. One of the stated purpose is because the agenda did not include information on LUMA's failure to secure federal funds. There are several rulings on this that this is outside the scope of the rate case. The hearing examiner on October 16th in a technical conference stated that this process is not a management audit of federal funding. So that if the purpose is that, it's outside the scope of the rate case, and we object to that. Secondly, it's to guarantee that all discussions regarding federal funds is accurate. As of today, after months of discovery, hundreds or thousands of pages of filings, not one party has raised any concern on the accuracy of the information that has been filed on the status of federal funding reimbursements. In fact, since July 3rd, LUMA filed 46,862 pages of information in response to a request for information 75 by the Energy Bureau stating the status of the federal funded projects at the time of the filing. Since then, no objections have been filed, nor PREPA nor anyone has contested the accuracy of that information that also contain business records that I think are fully authenticated on the record without any of a Core 3 representative to come in to clarify whether those documents are accurate or even to authenticate them. Other exhibits are already on the record, produced by LUMA and Discovery. Bondholder Exhibit 387, known as LUMA CAPEX 6, that was filed on September 5, 2025, list of T&D projects that LUMA had submitted to the different federal concerned agencies. No objections as to the accuracy of that information have been filed. The exhibit was filed. PREPA did not object to that either. Bondholder Exhibit 392, there's explanations on federal funding projections. Bondholders Exhibit 393, FEMA 6 ROI, also includes information on 22 permanent works related to Fiona, and I think it's also information on federal fund projects, and there's also information on the record in this proceeding and the separate procedure on federal funding on the consolidated project list. Not one objection has been filed whether those records are inaccurate. So the idea that accuracy of data on federal funds status, there's no basis for that. So it would be irrelevant to bring a Core 3. She would have to presumably, I have to infer it would be irrelevant for her to appear. I would also state that PREPA, I'm reacting to a request by PREPA that I think it's an informative no motion. They're not seeking leave. I think they should have sought leave, but that's beside the point right now. The motion was filed as it is. But PREPA does not have a right to introduce witnesses in this proceeding. LUMA acts as PREPA's agent in terms of the rate petition on T&D. So if there's a concern that PREPA as a party should put forward evidence, that should not be a concern. And in our estimation, it's against the T&D OMA section 5.c. Procedurally, we have concerns. We wouldn't be able to anticipate objections on hearsay, for example, and we don't know right now the personal knowledge of this person, although we know her position in Core 3. The motion does not include any information for this Energy Bureau to ascertain that she would meet the threshold requirement that any witness needs to have personal knowledge of relevant information. So I think it would be inadmissible testimony. A non-witness should not add facts as per the hearing examiner's orders, but it's procedurally unfair at this stage of the proceeding. LUMA, the last data point I'll give, LUMA has filed 32 pre-filed testimony. We are aware that we have the burden of persuasion on T&D, but we have worked in an incredibly tight calendar, all of the councils and parties that are here, and to change that at the last minute and add more information and more testimony, it would be procedurally unfair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, one point, Ms. Mercado, thank you for that. I have to tell you, I would have anticipated all of those arguments. One point is that if the person were to appear, it would be only because the Bureau wanted it, not because PREPA wanted it. So that one argument of yours probably drops off the table. All the others are before the commissioners. And as I promised, there'll be an answer from either me or the commissioners by Saturday morning. All right. No, we're not going to have, we are not going to have more on this. Like I said, Something will issue on Saturday, and if you want to file for recon at that point, you do. You know, if it makes things easier or faster, bring your laptops with the exhibits so we don't have to wait for people to load things. It's up to you, but it is faster. On transcripts, all I can tell you is that there's a reporter back in the room, so somebody's made something happen, and I'm optimistic. That's the best I can tell you, is that I am optimistic from what I hear third hand that at some point there will be official transcript and that somebody will have paid for it and then everybody will have access to it. I have no control over that, no influence over it, but that is the news that I have, that I am optimistic. Ms. Valle had mentioned yesterday, no, I'm about to mix two things up. The federal funds panel, thinking ahead to.
I mentioned that today.
Well, 1 second. You mentioned that to December, roughly speaking, December 8th or so. Can I continue? I haven't said anything useful yet. Okay. There have been a lot of references to a lot of questions about what that panel will contain. And the dividing line that I have tried to use during these conversations, Guillermo Cortez's pre-filed report is about, is for the federal funds panel. And it's now occurred to me, thanks to some conversation briefly, non-substantive with Ms. Valle, that it would be useful to define the agenda for that session with more specificity. And so what I wanted to do is invite parties to give me questions, non-argumentative questions that they think, based on what they've heard so far, would be a useful way to spend those 6 hours. And that way we all are part of making the decision about how to use that time. That'll also give me some information to decide whether the 6 hours is insufficient, because we do have a cushion because we're staying on schedule and I can add some hours, but I want to be careful about other expectations that have caused people to make travel plans. So what I would like to come to now is an agreement on a date by which you all can give me and the commissioners your thoughts about types of questions that should be addressed in the federal panel. Today's Thursday. If you're anything like me, you've got weekend preparation to do, so I don't want to make it too tight. But could I say by the end of the day next Wednesday that if you have thoughts, this is an hour job. You sit down, you look up at the ceiling, and you think about what questions are useful to provide. Can I say that by next Wednesday that you'll come up with whatever creative ideas you have? And the question is whether this has to be done by formal motion or whether it gets done by email. Does anybody mind if we just do it by email and you copy everybody? Does anybody mind if we do it that way? Nobody minds. Okay, next Wednesday, folks, will be okay? 1 second, please. Luma, do you need a minute? Yeah, please, I'll wait. What the controversy is. Just looking to set a date.
Just a note, the 19th, which is Wednesday, it's a holiday in Puerto Rico. I don't know if that's relevant. I mean, we work, but I know that maybe.
Well, yeah, it is relevant that an official hearing examiner should not be providing a deadline on a, now the question is, do I make it Tuesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon? So we'll make it Thursday. Okay, Thursday afternoon. I could make it Thursday morning, but that's a little unfair. So we'll make it Thursday afternoon, please. Yes, Ms. Mercado?
Yeah. To clarify, is it to add questions to the current agenda items or to add agenda items? So if there's...
I don't want to put an artificial cap on it. Whatever you think ought to be covered, all right, whether it's on the agenda or not, okay?
And would the parties have an opportunity to oppose adding agenda items? I know it's along the lines of what I was arguing earlier. It's a bit of, expanding the scope of a panel while the, with the hearing is going on. it's beyond what was initially anticipated.
Well, no,
So
I'm not going to give you that opportunity right now. Just send it in. And if I see something that's questionable, I've got an eye for it. I'll ask people's opinion. All right. You all have enough to do, but I've got a good eye for what's going on. I'm not looking to expand the panel. What I'm looking to do is make sure we don't leave something out that matters. And frankly, what matters is what matters to the 5 people behind me. So I'll be sharing that list with them and asking them what matters to them. Now, there's a fairness issue because of workload. We'll address it because we're not going to cover everything. Okay? Sorry, I don't mean to sound upset. I'm not upset. I'm appreciative of Ms. Mercado's intervention. Okay? Next Thursday, 5 p.m. Atlantic. By email, copy everybody. No argument, please. Just be creative. Think about the public interest. Next topic. I had a question from somebody about making sure that the live audio recording is made available by the Energy Bureau on a daily basis. I have to talk to the person who is responsible for that to see what it is that we're doing and what we're not doing. Apparently, there's a concern that the YouTube transmission is not optimal. So I will get with Mr. Gerardo and find out about that.
Mr. Hempling, this is Commissioner Mateo. Regarding the transmission, our internet provider is Claro, and they have been experiencing issues with their operations island-wide, apparently. So that's the cause of interruption. So we need to figure out whether we lost any amount of audio with those interruptions, and perhaps a way to cover or to cure that is with the transcript. We have been taking notes on, there was a gap today about 10 minutes. We know the time when that happened, so we may have to talk with the transcript people to work on that, but that's the reason of why we have been having issues. And I'll talk to Gerardo and our RT people to see how quickly we can have the transmit the copy of the video available in either our website, or we can maybe shoot an email to all the participants, the lawyers and consultants with the link of the video.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Next, I'm almost done. Mr. Fernandez, was it either today or yesterday, reminded me in response to my asking a question about the fairness of allocating distribution upgrades that raised the value of solar question potentially. He's got my attention on that, and I'll give that careful thought. So that's on my list. In terms of building access in the morning, what I'm told is that weeks ago we gave a list to the people at the front of the building of the regular attendees, and the response was that no list changes the need to check your packaging. I had hoped that the list at least would get a second bin, but there still is only one bin. I've got a bin back at my apartment. Maybe I should bring it in tomorrow, and because I don't need it. So I'll look into that. I asked about remote cross of Courtney Lane, but I think I gave you a later deadline than today. Who is it who intends, and she testifies about cars, electric vehicles. It's 700,000 out of 5 billion. Who is it? But she was not on any list of, nobody wants to cross her. Who is interested in crossing her? Do we know? Well, all I know is that she was not on that Mr. Brady told me that there was nobody who had been completely irrelevant to everybody.
Yes, one of my colleagues was managing that list, and my understanding was that there was no witness who at least one party did not indicate they wanted to cross, which would include Ms. Lane, right. But I can double check that. I know we did not intend to cross her.
In any event, what I want to know is if I can tell her not to make any plane reservations so that she can be crossed, if at all, from home. So I think I gave you all a deadline. I was just checking on that. All right.
Double check.
And thank you, Mr. Brady, for reminding me that cross-examination is purely adversarial. I'm enforcing that, and there's some people who don't like that, and so I have to apply that absolutely even-handedly, and I will be more careful about that. And that is all that I have for housekeeping for today, unless somebody wants to raise anything.
Yes, if I may. last night, Luma asked for an extension to 8 ROIs that were due either yesterday or the day before. I agreed to 4 of them as to witnesses who are on future panels. However, 4 of them, either Mr. Melendez or Mr. Burgomeister or both of them, were responders to the ROI to which they related. I discussed with Ms. Mercado, the Monday they had proposed would not work because the T&D panel may be over by the time we actually get the ROI responses. So the accommodation we discussed was to be able to cross as to those ROIs on a later panel, these witnesses, should we need to cross them on those ROIs, and that there would not be an objection from either Luma or anyone else to us doing so on the basis of it no longer being the T&D panel.
All right. In other words, you're asking me at some point to be open to making a slot of time where we deal with any cross if necessary, and I'm open to that. I will do that. We'll just have to make that time available, and that's fine. Thank you for letting me not have one more order to write. Is that it? All right. Is that it for today? Well, 5:06, not bad. Thank you very much for a productive day, for your patience. We'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow. We're adjourned.